Hello everybody, and welcome to the Inari build log. Forgive any awkward camera angle or jostling, as I have this thing essentially right in the middle of where I probably should be standing, but I didn't have a better way to mount my camera. And basically in this part of the video, I'm just going to walk everybody through the parts I chose and why I chose them. And we're going to start off with the part that's sitting right here in front of the camera. My Ryzen 9 3900X, which is going to be the heart of my CPU, the heart of my new system. I picked the 3900X because for the extra money, you do get 4 more cores, which are helpful for a lot of the things I'm going to be doing on this rig, namely photo editing, gaming, and video processing. When I was originally planning to build a new system, I was actually thinking of a Threadripper computer, a Threadripper-based system. But Threadripper has some disadvantages when it comes to certain things. Now, you can game on Threadripper. It's perfectly fine, but Threadripper does impact performance a little bit more than most would find acceptable. But the 2700X didn't quite have the productivity leap I was looking for. Again, great CPU, but not quite there yet. The 3900X kind of offers an excellent compromise between the productivity of a Threadripper and the ability to game on it like a 2700X or a 9900K. On top of that, I'm happy to be joining AMD for the first time in 15 years, which is cool. And of course, with the CPU, I need a motherboard to plop it on. And that's where this comes in. MSI's X570 Godlike motherboard. Now, a bit overkill? Well, yes. Overall, a theme with this build is going to be it's a bit overkill in some instances. And this board is certainly no exception. I had a few requirements for the board. Was this actually open? Yeah, it opens. It opens very difficultly. With much difficulty. To show the nice goods on the inside. Anyways, when I was picking a motherboard, I had a couple criteria, and one of them was to have 3 M.2 slots for reasons that are going to be very apparent soon. But I also wanted, solid cooling for those M.2 drives, obviously, which this does have. This has a very nice little system where this chipset fan doubles as ducting air over these M.2 slots, which hopefully will work really well. Now, MSI has in the past had one of the better M.2 cooling solutions, and I'm hoping that that holds true on the Godlike as well. The other thing I wanted was 10 gig Ethernet, and this is one of a handful of boards that actually has 10 gig Ethernet. Now, unlike the ORS Extreme, it's not on the board itself, but it does come with that card. It also comes with another card that gives you another 2 M.2 slots, because I absolutely like having a ton of storage in my system. Which is also the reason I coincidentally want 10 gig. My old system, which is over there right now, is probably going to be converted into a storage server at some point, and having a 10 gig Ethernet would certainly be good. A 10 gig card, if you're not familiar, is about $100 all by itself, and yeah, that starts adding into why this ended up making some financial sense. And also, I have to admit, I do like the look of it, and it does kind of fit in with the aesthetics of the build. And then next up, in terms of RAM, I went with this. 32 gigs, two 16 gig kits of Corsair Dominator Platinum, DDR4 3600 Cas16. This I waffled on a lot. This was a lot of money. Even doing it the way I did, where I bought two 16 gig kits, which did save me some money. But I felt like, knowing Ryzen's really picky on RAM, that this was probably a good investment, even if it was a lot of money. And yeah, I mean, they are saying, AMD themselves say 3600 Cas16, so, here's hoping this pays off. I'm hoping I can maybe get this to 3733, or maybe tighten the timings up a little, and get like 3600 Cas15 or something like that, but we'll find out. And as I said, I do have 2 kits, the other kit's over there. 2 kits, plenty of goodness. And to keep the CPU cool, Corsair's H115i RGB Platinum. Not much to say about this. Closed-loop liquid coolers in general are kind of a... You know what, you can't really go wrong with most of them. Most of them use Asus pumps. This is one of the few that doesn't. This uses a coolant pump, but overall, they're very similar in terms of performance. I bought this because I've used Corsair a lot in the past, and you know, I see no reason to go wrong, you know, to change what works for me in general. Moving on, and I'm trying to move as fast as I can. Next thing, and I swear that Corsair is not sponsoring this build, if I can get to focus. 2 Corsair 960 gig MP510 NVMe SSDs. These, I was very surprised to see that these were only about $115 on Newegg, which means I got 2 of these for the price of an SN750E or a 970 Evo. And from reviews, these are every bit as good in terms of things. At the time, I didn't know how much the PCI Express 4.0 drives would be, or I might have thrown one of those in here as well, especially to use as the photography editing drive. In addition to these 2, there's also going to be a Samsung 860 EVO M.2 drive going on the board. That's why I needed 3 M.2 slots. But that's currently in my current rig, and that's my boot drive, so I can't remove it just yet, because I need to upload this video, and so obviously I can't pull it out and do that. But yeah, 2 of these, plus another one. That's 3 terabytes of NVMe SSD storage. On top of that, I got 2 of these, which are Toshiba X300 5TB 7200 RPM spinning drives, because, yeah, a lot of the storage in this system is mainly because the storage in my old system is aged so much that I just am really nervous putting it into a new computer and using it. These were on sale, so these were about $90 each, which really wasn't bad. They're well rated, and you know, the failure rate on Toshiba is pretty decent from what I saw. I think the biggest complaint most people had is they're a little noisy. I've not found them to be noisy. I stuck them in my drive cage over there and already transferred the data off my current computer into them because that was faster, and they really weren't that loud outside of a case. I mean, some people, I guess, expect their hard drives to be quiet, or completely quiet, I should say. They just made typical hard drive noises to my ears. And I'm just trying to get the next thing. I also have these. I have actually a lot more of these Corsair LL140 light loop fans. I have this 2-pack and then 3 more single fans, because they're all going to be going into and filling up the biggest part of this, which is my case, which doesn't even fit in frame, mind you. So I apologize about that, but I went with Corsair's Crystal Series 680X RGB. Originally I was going to do the Leon Lee 011 Dynamic. I'm trying to pan this as best as I can. Nope, that's spoilers. I was originally going to go with the 011 Dynamic. The reason I didn't is because from the start I was figuring I'm probably doing an EATX board. And while the 011 Dynamic can do EATX, I wasn't confident it was going to do EATX without being way too cramped. Specifically the way where the cable grommets are in relation to where an EATX board ends. There's a little bit more clearance on the 680X than there was on the 011 Dynamic, and it made me more confident with purchasing this to work in. I didn't really want to have a hard time with the cable routing and stuff, and while you can do it, I decided that this has better clearances and everything. Plus, this actually ended up cheaper, despite the biggest complaint most people have with this case being that it's a lot of money. It's like $260 normally. The fact is because this comes with 3 of the light loop fans already, which I was going to be buying on the 011 Dynamic, well, yeah. And for the record, yes, I know the light loops are not the best fans you can buy, but I like the look of them. And that is kind of part of this build in some ways, is that there's a lot of just silly aesthetic stuff that I did that I didn't really need to do. And then to finally top it all off, which maybe I should have done this first because it weighs a ton. And I think you can figure out what's coming. Oddly enough, not a Corsair power supply, but an eVGA 1000 Supernova 1000 T2. Why? Kind of 2 reasons. One, reusing an old power supply. I have an HX1000i, and while it's still good and still going, 2 things came up, which is one, if I do plan to turn that system into a file server, I'm going to need another power supply. 2, this was on sale, which means this was about the same price as like an 850 watt power supply when I bought it, which is cool. And 3, I really don't want to get into tearing that out of that computer. I detest working in that H440, which is what that's in, is an H440i. I detest working in it, which is part of the thing that I was like, I'm noping and just buying this to make my life easier. Pulling the graphics card, because I guess by now you probably realize there's no graphics card in this thing. And that's because I'm reusing my Asus Strix GTX 1080 Ti that's in the system already. I saw no reason to upgrade to like an RTX 2080, obviously, or 2080 Ti right now. I'm waiting to see the results on Super, the 2080 Super, because I think that maybe, if it, you know, is like its siblings, a really solid option. Please also ignore I've been testing paint colors on that wall. So that's another thing. I was sitting here and I did that and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to be shooting a video at the desk later. So yeah. I digress. So the other thing, so that's basically it for parts. There is like a card reader. I have the Corsair Commander over there. I have the LED strips and stuff. I didn't feel like dragging all that over here. I didn't have enough staging room. It's a little tight in my room, to be honest. I will be doing some benchmarks. I want to compare this system to my old system. I think it would be a very meaningful comparison for a lot of users out there who may be coming from a Skylake aged setup and want to see the benefits. The one downside to that is I really didn't figure out a great way of, say, benchmarking a Lightroom photography workload. I know that Puget Systems has a like pre-bottled benchmark that you run through Lightroom. My only issue with that is it's a great benchmark and it covers a lot of areas, but I do not personally like that it doesn't weight the things that are important to me. It does a lot of stuff with like transform and layers and stuff like that, which are single core operations, whereas the stuff that I primarily do, import, export, are heavy multi-threaded applications, where I have seen a couple people that have done benchmarks like it. About the best thing I could come up with is importing a bunch of files and then exporting a bunch of files and timing it. But the reason I didn't want to do that is it would simply, I wasn't confident I could get the timing right using a timer or anything for an accurate enough result. Likewise, on my benchmarks I've already run on the 6700K, I'd point out pretty quickly that I actually may be throwing out my Battlefield 5 results. I'm not confident that I've got the margin of error low enough to be any sort of meaningful result. Mainly because Battlefield 5, in my experience on my current computer, has a nasty habit of like just suddenly stuttering. And not because of like the graphics card being inaccurate. It's like a huge frame time variance. I've seen other review people noting that. And some people have said, actually, it doesn't do that on Ryzen. It seems to just be an Intel thing, because even on 9900K, I've seen them mention the frame time drop like that. The sad part is that's actually one game where I expect the Ryzen to do really well in, because it does like having a lot more cores. Even at a higher resolution, it should do really well. I may benchmark the Ryzen and I may see how it like feels, and I may balance my review or performance benchmarks as much with objective data as subjective data. I'll also edit the video for that probably on the Ryzen system. Beyond that, I'll probably just upload pictures as opposed to videos, because I don't have tons of room to have this tripod set up. I would actually show me putting the thing together, for the record, but this is where I've probably got to stand right now, and it's a little awkward to work around, in all honesty. But anyways, this is now almost 14 minutes long, and I really should be getting to building this thing. Probably going to go get some coffee and then start in on this, and hopefully have it at least posting by tonight. So I'll see everybody around, and I hope that you tune in and enjoy.